Hey Lounge fans, before this episode begins, we want to thank our corporate partners EY and Protiviti for helping to make this podcast possible. Stay tuned to the Lounge and BHSA for some exciting opportunities with all our fantastic corporate partners. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to the Lounge.
All right, everybody, hello and welcome back to the Lounge of BHSA podcast. I'm Nate Latimer, joined as always by my co-host Mohak Desai. Mohak, good evening to you.
How are you, Nate?
Doing well. It's a sort of a dark and stormy night, bit of an eerie
It
backdrop to this episode. Hopefully we'll get some of that supernatural energy we were talking about a couple of weeks ago in the episode, bring that into this performance.
I like it. We're both in Chester County, so yeah, I guess we're both the same weather outside.
Yeah, if I just randomly cut out or you see a giant lightning bolt come through my window or something, just know that, that's why.
Disaster struck.
Exactly. But you know what? The show goes on, Mohawk, and this show continues to roll on. And, before we get into the much anticipated pick of the week, I think it's only fair to shout out your appearance on a BHSA coffee chat this week. Hopefully, this episode won't be out by the time that coffee chat comes out, but hopefully we had a couple of our listeners go and enjoy the coffee chat. You excited, man? It's going to be a good time, I hear.
I'm hyped. I'm doing with Carson. Shout out Carson Shaner. We're doing that tomorrow. And so we'll just be going over, I think, everything finance related. So that's great because I love talking about finance. And so this just is a really good opportunity for freshmen to, I guess, sort of ask whatever questions are on their mind, ask all the stupid questions they have that they don't want to ask, real people in the industry. So, we're always here as a backup. And we hope that whoever's listening, if you're a freshman and you didn't really sign up for coffee chat yet, I'd recommend doing it. 100%.
Yeah, definitely do it. You'll be getting emails from Svetlana all summer long about multiple opportunities for a coffee chat, so definitely take advantage of that.
You're getting bothered by her, yep.
Exactly. But, Mohawk, enough fun and games because you know what time it is. It is time for Pick of the Week. Pick of the Week is, of course, the segment where Mohawk and I discuss anything and everything on our minds. Mohawk, I think if it's all right with you, I'll go first this week.
Please.
Last week, obviously, talked about MMA. We talked way too long about MMA. I had to cut out about 15 minutes of me, Mohawk, waxing philosophical about MMA. But this week, I'm going to keep it short and sweet.
Okay.
My pick of the week is yoga.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yoga.
I like that.
Nice and simple,
Have you been doing yoga?
I have been. So I've been practicing yoga, I would say, on and off ever since my junior year of high school. We started doing hot yoga as an alternative to practice in wrestling.
Really?
Yeah, and ever since then, I've been hooked. I've really enjoyed it. It's just like a great way to get your mind right. For people, former athletes that have a lot of injuries, a lot of tightness, it's just a good way to, unwind your body, get ready for the day. And then I use it as a warm up to work out. Honestly, whenever I'm stressed, whenever I feel tight or, have been sitting in a weird position, I always just try to hop on a yoga mat and do a couple minutes of flow. And then I'm back to normal.
Okay, this is a shock to me. You do not seem like a yoga guy at all, but that's cool, man.
So I try to be full of surprises.
You do all the the breathing stuff. You do what are some poses?
The whole shebang. Oh man, my favorite yoga poses. I like poses that really put me in a powerful position. So I like a mountain pose. I like a tree pose, a star pose. Obviously the warrior pose progressions, warrior 1 and 2, crescent warrior. All those good stuffs, chaturanga.
Wow. Okay. This is a shock to me, but that's amazing. The only yoga that I've done is on the Wii Fit. You know what I'm talking about?
Wii Fit I used to love the Wii Fit board. Yeah. What happened to that?
Dude, kind of fell off, man. But awesome. I feel like that's a very good way for you to sort of let all that energy out. Sort of, it's a great I guess coping mechanism for whatever's going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a great way to escape and to understand your own breathing and your own body and focus on being in the moment. I think that's what yoga is all about.
Nice. Well, my pick of the week actually kind of ties in with yours. We talked about MMA last week, and mine's actually a quote. It's a quote by Bruce Lee. says, everyone knows this quote. It's "Be like water, my friend." And that has genuinely been on my mind for the past couple of days. I've just been thinking about it in the shower, in bed. What does it really mean? What does it mean to be like water? You know, because I take it two ways. So the first way I take it is, and this is more of a negative light, I guess. It's like, you know, shape to whatever's around you, you know. But then you always have these people talking about, you know, be yourself, create your own path. So it's conflicting evidence from Bruce Lee, and it just really upset me. I don't know what to think now. What do you think it means?
I think what it means is there's such a benefit in being an adaptive person and having an adaptive personality, right? So let's take this podcast, for example, Mohak. I came to you, you know, 2.5 months ago and said, Mohak, you know what? I want to do a podcast for BHSA. And you could have easily pushed back, say, oh, I'm uncomfortable with it. I don't want to do it. But you know what you did? You said, you know what? I've never done anything like this, but let's go for it. I think that's exactly what Bruce Lee was talking about. You know, the ebbs and flows of the water. You fill the space that's needed. And it's such a good metaphor, because when there's an open space and an opportunity, you know, water flows into that open space. So I think, especially in business, and, you know, this is also some great advice for incoming freshmen, is don't be afraid to take the initiative to go after an open opportunity, no matter what it is. I mean, it seems self-explanatory, but I think there's a lot of hesitation, especially, you know, at such a young age, 18, 19, that, oh, maybe I'm not qualified enough for this. Maybe I don't know enough people. But if you put yourself out there, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised about what opportunities are actually available for you.
Wow. Your insights are always amazing. That was perfectly put. I couldn't have said any better.
You know,
and
it's been inside yourself all along, Mohak.
Maybe you just drew it out of my head. And I like to add on that. Like, say yes to more things than you say no to, right? I mean, you tend to regret the things that you don't do rather than things that you do most of the time, right? So yeah, I'd give that advice too. Just say yes. All right, cool.
Simple as that, Mohak.
We have an exciting guest today.
That we do. Kerwing High of Protiviti, a former BHSA member, a really active member even after graduation. He's always coming back to do speaker meetings, always happy to talk to current BHSA members. And today, we're going to get a really good chance to dive into consulting as a profession. Obviously, there's so many things you can do within the consulting sphere, but overall, I think this episode is just going to be a really good synopsis of what it's like to live in this fast-paced environment that is consulting. Why choose consulting over industry, and, you know, what benefits you get out of being a consultant.
If you check out Protiviti, you'll see that they serve a lot of different industries. So, you know, I think the more people can learn earlier on about consulting and the different avenues that people can take, I think this is a really good opportunity for people to sort of learn more about the field. So I'm excited.
Most definitely. Well, without further ado, we'll get into this next portion of the podcast and bring on Kerwing.
All right,
everybody. We are back and joined by Kerwing High of Protiviti. Kerwing, thank you so much for coming to the lounge.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
So I think a good place to start is to just give our listeners a little bit of background on yourself, your involvement in the Fox Honors Program, and, you know, that as kind of a launching point for your career.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kerwing High. I work for a consulting firm located in Philadelphia called Protiviti. I've been working at Protiviti for about 3.5 years. I graduated from the Fox Honors Program, I want to say 2015. I got a degree in actuarial mathematics with a minor in MIS. Didn't enjoy it too much, but then I transitioned, and then I got my master's in IT auditing and information security. So from there, I launched going into consulting. Been working, love it, love the people, and I love coming back and supporting, you know, the Business Honor Student Association, which is very near and dear to my heart. So,
you know, I guess, you know, during your undergrad and during your master's, did you always know you wanted to be a consultant? Can you remember a time when you kind of realized, wow, you know, consulting's for me?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think for me, I'm a people person. I don't know if you can tell. I love talking to people, interacting with them. And first starting out with my internships, I interned when I first started intern with Travelers Insurance, you know, up in Connecticut. And I think for me it was a rewarding experience. It was my first internship ever, like literally working in corporate America. And I liked having a cube. Like, I think the cube was nice. You could decorate it, make it your own. I made sure I got candy so people would come and talk to me and things like that. But then something felt off. Like I wanted to talk. I found myself not at my desk, but more talking, interacting with my peers, my manager, HR, whoever, just walking and talking. And then my second internship, I decided to take I took a finance internship with Lincoln Financial. And again, I had the same problem. I thought maybe it was the industry. I didn't like insurance. Maybe it was finance. So I switched and I did some finance work for Lincoln Financial up in, what was it, New Hampshire, very different state. And there, I just, for me, I would still hanging out with peers and coworkers, hanging with them on the weekend, talking, interacting with them. But I couldn't sit still at my desk. And I realized something. It's just, I didn't like to be chained to a desk is what I really ultimately found out about myself. I through just, internship experience, I sat there and I was like, I love the cube. I love having my own personal space, but also at the same time, I really value interacting with people, learning about their stories, learning about what they do, seeing how I can help them. And so I think consulting just became the natural approach. I think, consulting is a great way of taking those personal skills that you have, the desire to help people, and translate it to something, business and profit making and so on and so forth. And I think that industry set in really for me early on or later, after my graduate degree.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's a sentiment that a lot of students can relate to. Definitely having the corporate experience under their belt and then realizing, wow, this is not for me. And I think branching into consulting is a great way to sort of get away from that corporate aspect. But it's a huge umbrella term, right? There's so many ways and avenues of going with consulting. So if you were able to describe consulting in one sentence, how would you do it?
Okay, so I think for me, there's a saying that we have in consulting. Consulting is a trust-based industry, right? And trust, what we say is trust is consistency over time. So we're delivering quality, consistent work to our peers, our coworkers, our clients, mainly our customers. And I really do think that's in essence what it really is. It's a foundation of trust because, you may be a customer with me today, but you also could be my best friend in 20, 30 years, right? And so it's that everlasting relationship going forward. And sure, there's context of business around it, but ultimately there's a hope that, I help you, and then maybe in the future I need your help, and then it goes back and forth, and we have this relationship throughout eternity.
And so consulting's more of a people business, and it's very, very centered around people. On a day-to-day basis, though, what does your job look like? What are you doing? What is a day in the life of a consultant look like?
Sure. There's now two, right? There's like consulting, and then there's also like COVID consulting, because no one wants me, on their actual on-site anymore. General week, it would probably be on-site with client, meetings all day, back into the office, executing work, talking to project teams like my other core members of my team, having management discussions, and that's like one day. And the next day, it's back into the office, figuring things out, just getting your own things together, catching up with people in the office, because I think people forget that your fellow peers are almost clients, considered clients as well. And you alternate, right? So you alternate. So then the third day is back at client, figuring it out, going through all the steps. Fourth day, back at the office, figuring everything out, really just catching up on everything. And then the last day is Friday, is probably the easiest day. Friday. It's Friday. You wrap up everything that you're supposed to do. You final up, you tie any loose ends. Clients, admittedly, sometimes they kind of like dip out after like 3 p.m. But you're still hard at work. So you're still, sending emails, making phone calls, drafting reports up until the end. And that mileage may vary, right? So there are days when I'm slow, where I can have a break, I can breathe. And then there are days where it's every day's meetings. And I find myself, catching up on the weekends just to make sure I get everything on time.
Mm-hmm. And that sounds like a lot more communication than most people might think would entail.
You're absolutely right. I think for us to ensure that our message and what we want to get done is clear, we have to kind of over communicate. So something that's really difficult, especially for new consultants that come in, is that juggling act. It's managing the actual execution of the work, but then also communicating what you're actually doing for the client.
Most definitely. When I think consulting, I just think of there's so many moving pieces, so many balls to juggle that I think it attracts a very certain kind of worker and employee, and the fact that they can handle all these things, multiple clients, lots of moving pictures, and all this handling within the week is just a crazy thing to do. Do you have a favorite project or something you can remember that kind of encapsulates, this is what a consultant is?
If I were to say my favorite one was probably when I was working on an engagement for a large retailer here located around the Pennsylvania area. They had 5 work streams. They had 5 separate work streams for different countries. And let me tell you, these countries are, I didn't get to visit them. I sent people to visit them, which is, sad face. But us at the same time, each country had like several different work streams. And so I think for me, my job was to project manage it. So you had people in the US, you had people in Delaware, you had people in Italy, Germany, and then the UK. And so you have all of these countries, and each of them have their individual work stream. You have penetration testing, you have risk assessments, you have, what else is there? Mobile assessments, web applications. And so each of them have their own special, flavor to them. And then my job was to coordinate all of it, also while managing the budget, the expense, the daily updates, the weekly updates, the monthly updates, leadership. And so for me, everything is stressful at the time, but also retrospectively looking back at it, you learned a lot. And I learned a lot culturally. I think for me, variations among different countries matter. I got that exposure early on. But then also communicating with your internal team is also very important too. You have a lot of, to your point, Nathan, you have a lot of moving parts, right? And so if we miss the ball internally, client doesn't see that, but client will be sure to raise their hand when they know that you dropped the ball. So it's better that we catch it internally first before that ever shows out into the front facing of the client.
Right. So there's a lot of like behind the scenes work that you guys are doing before the client even sees any of your work at all. Right?
Exactly. Oh, there's really so much work that goes into
Right.
it. Right? You have to. So I'm a senior right now. So I have a lot of senior peers, but then I also have consultants that are helping me execute the work. But then I also have to speak to upper management about, hey, this is going to come down the road. You need to sign it. You need to review it. You need to QA it. So it's managing those parts, and then also communicating with the actual client and asking the client, hey, did you get this? Did you review this? Can we schedule some time? Can we coordinate a meeting with all 15 of your people somehow, some way? It does take a lot of organization, and it also does take, and this is something I've came to appreciate, is foresight, right? It's understanding, hey, this is going to happen. It may be months away, but it's going to happen. So let's prepare for it. Let's figure it out. Let's talk about it. So yeah, no, I that's probably one of the projects that really stand out in my mind about different juggling acts.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the more frustrating moments of being a consultant? With all this constant communication, all these working parts. What are some parts of your job that might be frustrating?
Oof, this is a whole session in of itself sometimes. And I mean it in the most joking sense, because I think consulting is, I'll do the it's great, but, and then so it is
Right.
it is a great industry to be in. I've learned a lot over the past 3.5 years, but it can be frustrating, and you're absolutely right. I think a huge thing for me is that you can't really plan your own personal life really that well sometimes either, right?
Mm.
It kind of gets in the way. I think typically with industry jobs, you have a clock in, clock out, right? Your day ends at 5:30. You're done. You're set. But that's not the case with consulting. If a client calls me, I'm not going to not pick up because they're obviously calling me for something important. And again, that trust, right? You want to make sure you gain that, you have that trust with that client. So I'd like to tell clients, like, if you do have a problem, if you really do have an issue, give me a call whenever, wherever. So I think for me, it can be very difficult to kind of plan your life. I'd like to think I have boundaries. Like on my wedding day, I won't pick up a client call. Is like the boundary line that I'll call it.
All right, don't be unreasonable
but also
now.
At the same time, I would not if a client calls me on my wedding day, I'll be like, give me like 5 minutes. I have to wrap up this other meeting that I'm in. I gotta figure this out. So hold on a second. But that can be a really difficult part. And then the other difficult part that I will mention, the other one, is when you've communicated something, and this happens, and it's fine. And this happens sometimes with over communication. you communicate something and then it becomes miscommunicated or missed. Drives me up the wall. Like, I've sent you, daily, weekly, monthly updates, and it's still, missed the target. But at the same time, what can I do? Right? I can just work with it and be have the flexibility to move forward and adjust it as necessary. So that can be really frustrating as well.
Yeah, I think it just ties back to the theme of communication, and it just becomes so apparent when there are holes in your communication plan when you are working on multiple different client engagements. So that kind of leads into, what I want to talk about next is, what are some common misconceptions about the consulting industry that you might have heard either from people in industry or from students that are looking to pursue a career in consulting?
Yeah, no, I think not all the rumors are false, but also some of them are definitely conflated and inflated to poor consulting in a negative light. Right? And I think one of them really is work-life balance. I think I see the memes on, online and on Reddit where people work like 500-hour weeks just because, they can't, just because they have to. They work you to the bone. I will say it's different for me because, and admittedly, it's because of the size of the industry or consulting industry. I'm in a mid-level or mid-sized consulting firm, right? So there's a distinction between, Protiviti as well as comparatively to the Big Four, which have a larger consultant base. And so for me, I have a lot more flexibility, admittedly, in my schedule, right? I can set my own pace. I can work with my own clients, and I can raise the flag and say, hey, like, I'm working 80-hour weeks. Like, I can't do this. And they're willing to work with me. And so I think that's one of, if in my mind, one of the strongest, I guess, rumors or misconceptions that they have. Consulting can be, building your own life and lifestyles. You can make structure around it if you want it to. Right? I joke about my wedding day, but also at the same time, it's my wedding day. if I told my clients I'm getting married this day, they're gonna be like, okay, that's reasonable, and I'd be like, I really hope it is. There are things that you can do and have the life that you want as long as you establish the right boundaries. And that's literally not just for consulting, just for life, right?
Yeah, I think the common misconception is the time commitment. I think, and obviously this goes for a lot of jobs in industry and out, that there's going to be weeks where you're pushing 70, 80, 90 hours a week, because it is a client-driven business. It's really on the client's clock. I mean, you think about the same thing in sell-side investment banking, right? Where you really are at the will of your client in the fact that when something needs to get done, these are the ones that they might not be signing your paycheck, but they're the ones that are definitely paying it.
Yeah, and you know what? To your point, Nathan, it's not just one. Sometimes it's 4 clients that have your time, and you're sitting there and you have to juggle, and then sometimes they conflict with your schedule, and you have to. But they don't see any of that. It's all behind the scenes type of stuff that you don't really see.
Right, and so it sounds like for people that are entering consulting, I think figuring out how to balance work and life, or how to make a harmony out of the two, seems like something that's pretty important. But outside of being hardworking and trying to find a balance, what are some personality traits or interests that make a good consultant in a general sense?
Sure. I think a good litmus test that I always ask my consultants to do sometimes is just like try to hold a conversation with me for 5 minutes. It seems like I think you guys smile and you guys laugh, but it's actually sometimes hard for people to hold a conversation with someone else they don't know. Get to know someone, learn about what they do, or how many kids that they have, or where they live, or if they have pets and things like that. 5 minutes is an extremely long time, and so I think for me it's having interpersonal skills is not necessarily a must, but it's a really good to have. Obviously, if you're an introvert, it makes consulting very difficult. But I also know a lot of introverts at Protiviti that are thriving, that they love the work that they do because they can put their head down. They aren't necessarily client facing, but they can execute work really efficiently and really well. As we've already harped on communication skills like a lot, I think communication skills are another one. And then another thing that I would definitely mention is just teamwork and individual ability to work, right? So you should be able to work in a team but then also be able to shift gears quickly and to be able to execute your own work. If I have 4 clients and 2 of those are shared clients, so that means I share that with a group of other seniors or managers, I have to work in a team with that group, but my clients, C and D are individual clients. They are my clients. And so I have to learn to juggle both of those work streams, right? And be able to work in a team, factor in all of their opinions and work into one work program. But then also when I'm working individually, making sure that my work is still, crisp and polished and, go into the proper quality assurance or QA process. So I think those are all great items with the consultants that they should have, but I would never explicitly ask them, you have to have these things to be a consultant. Some of these things are grown and some of these things are polished when you're on the job. As long as you're willing to learn and not be rigid in that learning process is when we can start developing those skills.
Yeah, that's great to hear that there's definitely a level of flexibility and it's a learning experience even when you're on the job. And I think speaking of learning experiences, I think it's now best time to, address our BHSA members and listeners directly. What do you think BHSA members should do to learn more or pursue opportunities if they're thinking about consulting as a career?
So I think for me, what I would definitely strongly advise, I think BHSA students, I'm gonna toot your horn for a little bit. I think there's honor students really do. There's just a level ahead, right? I think they excel academically, which I think is a strong, push for a lot of job places, right? I think what is the standard job application level is like what 3.2, like that's nothing for you guys. Like, I think it's really nothing, and so it's doing more than that beyond the academic schoolwork. It really is about networking with as many people as you can. So myself, any of our other BHSA alum, I'm sure will be more than willing to sit down with you and talk to you about their career paths. If you know that you want to do consulting, though, what I really strongly want you to do is reflect internally and you ask yourself, is this really what I want to do? Like, understand the terms of agreement, right? This isn't like an Apple download update where you can just scroll through and be like, I accept. Like, I think you have to actually read the terms of the agreement. You have to understand that the road ahead of you is going to be hard, right? That there's going to be challenging, weeks, months where, you're working long hours, but at the end of it, you can come out stronger and better. And understanding that you may not know everything from the get-go. You may not. And you'll be able to adapt and learn on the spot and on the fly. If you can come to terms with these agreements and understand truly, hey, I think I have the necessary communication skills, personality, the ability to work in a team, right? And push forward and go consulting, then start looking. I think for you guys, there are so many different types of consulting industries now, right? There's a ton of managing. I'm in IT consulting, there's audit consulting, there's insurance consulting. There's just so many different types of consulting that you can do. And it's available and openly to you guys. Something that I wish I did back when I was a BHSA alum is try to follow people on LinkedIn that kind of have a similar background as you and see how they got where they are right now, right? If they're where you want to be, reach out to them, right? I think more times than not, when I reach out to people on LinkedIn, they're more than happy to share their experiences or to just talk for like 10 or 15 minutes just about how they got to where they are. Because if they're where you want to be, then take the time to at least learn from what they have done during that gap between you guys. Is something that I really would recommend all members do. I think with consulting, it's a great space for you to really find yourself if you're not sure about some things that you want to do, but you do have the foundational baseline of, again, excellent communication skills, those basic problem solving skills, the personality. I think it's great for anyone, and you can really just keep on learning. It's a job that you never stop learning. Like, I learned something today about the cloud infrastructure that I don't think I would have learned if I were maybe in an industry job. So I think that's really what I would tell all the members out there that really are considering consulting.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think another big question that's on everyone's mind at BHSA or people that are going into the career world is what's the recruiting process look like at a consulting firm?
Yeah.
You know.
So for us, I think it's become admittedly more streamlined. I think with consulting, I think there's a large demand. There's a strong demand for most consulting firms to start the process, one, early, and two, quickly. So I think the Fox follows the pretty much standard line where you get recruited back in the fall period. But there's obviously the courtsmanship, right? So if you see your number one consulting firm at a table sitting somewhere at a basic fall connection or whatever it is, be sure to recruit. Be sure to talk to them and get that early. If you're a freshman, out there, I can't stress enough, go to the connections. Go. I remember so many times when I went to the connection every single year. And when I finally, on my senior year, when I went to the connection again, the person who was sitting at the table recognized me every year. And they're like, hello again. And I'm like, hi. And so it's the same people that are recruiting at those events. So make sure to establish that coordination, that relationship early on, right? If you want to get good at consulting, you got to learn how to network. And that's a great example of how to start networking. And so after the recruiting process, hopefully all, BHSA members, get, the invited to the second round. The second round is really, it's a case study. And so I don't think case studies are very, I think, Nathan can talk about it a little bit more, but case studies are a little bit different than a regular interview, than a regular, like, I'm sitting down interviewing about, like, STAR method and stuff. What they do is they present you with the problem, and then your job is to figure out the solution for that problem, right? So in the most creative way possible. Obviously, there's a right answer, but there's no, like, really, really wrong answer. The thought is to try to get your mental thought process about how to actually solve the problem, how you're organizing your thoughts, and how you're prioritizing your solutions. And then if you're lucky enough, you come on a third round site, you come on site to whatever office, you interview with everyone, but you mainly interview with, like, senior managers, principals, directors, whoever they are, while on site. So that's the traditional consulting one. From a quick standpoint, and I've actually only recently started seeing this, is that sometimes the second round is when they actually give you an offer. And so I think I've noticed this with a couple of big four companies where the second round, when you're doing your case study, after that case study, I've seen consulting firms actually give an offer right there and then, which is very exciting. If you're like a junior or a senior, you're like, oh my God, I got a job offer in the same day. Those are always good. But my word of caution to everyone out there is, before you even say I accept or whatever, take time, right? I think you get very, like, antsy. I've gotten, I don't know if you guys have gotten, like, offers. You get really, like, excited and you're like, oh my God, I really want to accept. Just, take a breath, say, thank you so much, let me think about it, is something I would recommend to all the members out there.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, just read the terms.
Oh, you have to. You can't, in life, you can't just blindly. I know it's for your, your Apple update or whatever, you can just click on it. But for this is like real life. Like, they're going to give you money. Like, you have to, like, read the terms.
Yeah.
Yes. Know what you're getting yourself into, I think, is great.
Exactly, right?
And as a BHSA member, I think you're lucky that you do know what you're getting yourself into, and the fact that we're so lucky to have a great corporate partner like Protiviti that we're able to offer, sort of opportunities for continued learning. So, as we peek into the semester a little bit, and Kerwing is going to be a huge part of this. He's been such a great influence in the BHSA community already. Even after graduation, he's been such a friendly and familiar face. So for all that don't know him, I definitely recommend reaching out. But as a sort of a sneak peek, we are working on some big things with Protiviti coming this fall. So, having a Friday meeting over Zoom to talk a little virtually more about the firm, about, what really working in consulting is like on a day-to-day basis. And then, hopefully get into some more things regarding the cursive case study. And I think there's a lot of fear and trepidation over, what are these case study interviews like? How do I prepare? And luckily enough, we're going to be in a position where we will get you ready for these case study interviews. There's tips, there's tricks, there's ways to work and frameworks to keep in mind, and, stick to the BHSA content. And for anyone interested in consulting, we will get you ready for these kinds of interviews. But without further ado, we always end the show with the final question. This is
Okay.
the most hard-hitting question. Spotlight is on. Heat is on. Kerwing High. Protiviti. Are you ready?
Sure. I didn't read the terms of agreement on this one, but I'll go for it.
You know what?
Let's go for it.
The terms are hidden. Kerwing, if you could go back in time to retake just one of your classes during your time in the Fox Honors program, what would it be and why?
Wow. Oof. You're not testing you're testing my memory, and this is where my age shows, where I'm like, oh gosh, how many classes, which classes I took. So here there's two ways to do about it. You either take a class you were terrible at, right? For me, I took when I was in actuarial mathematics, I took a terrible modeling life contingencies. No, it was a financial investments class. Modeling life contingencies was great. For those of you that have Dr. Krupa, she's phenomenal. Love Dr. Krupa. But then there's also the second part where you pick a class that you loved. And for me, what I loved business communications. I know sounds super corny. There's a class, I think it was BH 2196 or something, I want to say is what it's called. I don't know why, but I loved this class. I had Professor Drew Almond, and I think for me, I loved writing, and I loved clear communication. And for me, it was a very easy class, but I also learned a lot about how to write professionally. And if I were to retake a class, it would probably be that class, just so that I can refresh my own knowledge how to better write in business. Because admittedly, when you get into the corporate world, there's still a lot of fluff that people put in and jam into emails. But I remember when Professor Almond would look at my email, he would cut it up and be like, here, this email could have been a sentence, and I'm like, I love that. I love that so much. So yeah, that would be it. That would be my class.
There you go. You heard it here first. Do not take BizCom lightly. We have some great professors in the honors program. Drew Almond, obviously a fantastic professor, and our very own academic director, Katie Gerst, also a fantastic BizCom professor as well.
Yep.
So do not take this lightly. But Mohak, this is about it. Got anything else?
No, Kerwing, thank you so much for coming on again. Honestly, that was very insightful, and you're kind of a hero, man. You're like the most social person I've met in a while. So I think talking to you was great. So yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Gosh, no problem. I look forward. I know there are big things coming out from BHSA, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I hope you guys stay safe during COVID. And for all the viewers out there, please stay safe, wash your hands, keep a nice, respectable social distance.
Thanks for listening to The Lounge, a BHSA podcast.